Today's video is brought to you by HelloFresh. In the world of cinema, many companies have established a strong foothold in the industry, from high-end digital cinema cameras from Sony, ARRI, or Red, to the more affordable range of cameras for the prosumer market from companies like Infinity, Zcam, or Blackmagic Design. But what if a juggernaut in the media production and consumer products field entered the ring with a cinema camera of their own? Apple is a company with a wide-ranging influence over the technology sector, especially when it comes to their mobile devices, which are often marketed to be able to compete with professional digital cameras on a film set. But they've yet to break into the cinema field with high-end cameras of their own. Apple has their hands in phones, laptops, TVs, tablets, and more. Why not cameras too?
Showstopper, top dog, Godfather, I'm the kingpin.
Apple has taken an interest in the photography field before, releasing one of the first consumer digital camera lines with the Quicktake in 1994, with a line spanning 3 different versions produced across a 3-year period before being discontinued in 1997.
Introducing the Apple Quicktake digital camera. It makes everything you do look better than before.
We covered this camera in our Obscure Camera episode a while back and linked it in the description if you'd like to check it out. But to be blunt, this camera was pretty much a failure in a long line of failures for Apple at the time in the 90s. In order to recover from a series of massive financial losses, Apple decided to bring Steve Jobs, the company's founder, back into a leadership role after he had been fired almost a decade prior. Jobs saw that Apple was overstretched with a baffling array of unnecessary products, and he ultimately decided that they needed to turn more towards their roots in computing in order to survive, leading to products like the iMac. Apple products that were outside the computing field ended up biting the dust as Apple consolidated their investments, and the Quicktake was one of these. What killed off Apple's interest in the camera world in the end was ultimately just cold hard finance. But by the late 2000s, after recovering from their downturn and reaching profitability, Apple once again branched outwards, proceeding to innovate with the release of the iPhone, taking the world by storm with their brand of smartphone technology. With the advent of smartphones, a phone could become more than a communication device. It could be a miniature computer, an alarm clock, or even a camera. They even eventually started marketing the iPhones in the future as legitimate photography and filmmaking tools for amateurs and professionals alike. Essentially a micro cinema camera shot on iPhone. You either step up or shut up though, and with big talk coming from Apple regarding their iPhones, big name cinematographers put those portable devices to the test, a notable example being Zack Snyder's short film Snow Steam Iron, which is a production that can make the viewer forget that it was shot on a smartphone at all, proving that when armed with an iPhone, sets, makeup artists, lights, deep pockets, and a crew, even a smartphone can create good-looking results when the cameraman forgot to bring his camera to the shoot. So given that Apple is already marketing themselves again as a producer of viable filmmaking tools, could we imagine an iCam on sale at some point in the future? Breaking into the cinema camera world is an expensive and dangerous ordeal for a company, even for big names such as Dalsa, a company which tried to develop the world's first commercially available 4K camera, the Dalsa Origin, despite being well versed in the terms of image sensor technology, and their efforts ended in failure. And like we said many times on this channel with a quote from Alan Lasky, if you want to make $1 million in Hollywood, you gotta spend $100 million. A private company with bold vision and rich leaders may find that easier to come to terms with, but publicly traded companies such as Dalsa or Apple may have trouble justifying a move like this to their benefactors. This is most likely due to the fact that the cinema camera industry is very narrow and full of professionals deeply entrenched with their favorite brand of cameras and lenses, not to mention that the projected camera market over the next 10 years is compressing, but that's something we'll talk about in another video. Not only is there very little money to be made in the industry, but you'd have to compete against companies like ARRI that literally eat, breathe, and sleep camera development. If a company already experienced in imaging technology like Dalsa can fail, Apple with their lacking camera tech certainly could too. But unlike Dalsa, Apple has plenty of expendable money for development.
Let's look at the other side of this, which is the armor that Apple has against tough times. 50 billion or so in dry powder cash-wise, plus cash equivalents, stock.
200-something billion.
Yeah, 200-something billion. it can build what it wants supply chain wise. It can use its cash and its resources to vertically integrate to potentially boost margins in tough times.
They have even been rumored to have the capacity to buy Disney, but experience here in developing an actual cine camera doesn't translate a lot from what they've developed for iPhones. Developing lenses, sensors, buying off codec patents, and bugs in cameras can be a back-breaking reality for companies. But the biggest challenge Apple would face, in my opinion, is not with their pocketbooks, but keeping themselves from Applefying the camera to the point of ridiculousness. Though knowing Apple, they probably claim to have invented 8K resolution in the promos for this hypothetical camera that they could build. But if producing a camera of their own isn't in the cards for Apple, is there another way that they could break into the cinema camera world? Of course there is. It's buying another company. We can find a very long list of mergers and buyouts carried out by Apple in the past few decades, absorbing new companies at one time every 2 to 3 weeks, in the words of former CEO Tim Cook. But maybe you've gotten tired of only buying from a company that sells their one ingredient and doesn't play well with other ingredients. Don't you want a meal that's not just an apple, but something with multiple third-party sources? And that's why today's sponsor, HelloFresh, sent us a box full of meals to try, since, we got a bit hungry talking about apples. The box comes full with every ingredient you need and the recipe and instructions, which if you're anything like me, you probably won't read it. Cooking is actually something I enjoy doing when I need to take a break from editing, and I'm always looking to learn a few new tricks. And HelloFresh is great for learning how to cook a variety of different style foods. Enjoy quick meals with recipes like falafel power bowls, seared steak and potatoes with béarnaise sauce, or Southwest pork and bean burritos, or in our case, bulgogi pork tenderloin. And let's face it, buying apples is expensive, and who has extra money and time to go to the grocery store and spend even more money on groceries? That's why HelloFresh helps you save money all year round, in fact being cheaper than grocery shopping and 25% cheaper than takeout. And HelloFresh is giving you a chance to try them out. So go to HelloFresh.com right now and use the code Voyager21 to get 21 meals and free shipping. Now, back to some cameras. If Apple wanted to take an interest in camera technology beyond its use in their phones, they could opt for this method with a camera company too. So who out there could they potentially buy? ARRI.
It's the end of the world.
Okay, the first real logical choice of a company that Apple could buy is Red Digital Cinema.
Much better.
Even landing an exclusive camera deal with them back in 2017. Even the little lawsuits they've gotten into over ProRes RAW, over the previously mentioned red-coded patent, have been beneficial for both companies, with President Jared Land assuring users on the Red user forum that the lawsuit was an Apple plus Red situation rather than an Apple versus Red situation. It is reasonable to assume that Apple intends to spread the RAW format they developed to a breadth of various camera and external recorder manufacturers in the industry. You don't just develop a codec for fun, after all. Looking into the financials of Red, though, while they are a successful company, they are still fairly small company, with only a reported 498 employees and a reported revenue of $159 million in 2021, which we will note is an estimate, as we generally don't see many numbers coming in from Red. In comparison, though, ARRI's annual revenue is a reported $448 million, and Blackmagic Design's revenue is on track to surpass $600 to $700 million in revenue. This isn't even mentioning the larger companies like Sony and their cameras that have massive amounts of R&D behind them. And considering Apple made a reported $349.3 billion in 2022, they would more than likely be able to spare $1 billion or $2 to buy Red Digital Cinema. And that's considering the fact that Blackmagic Design is only valued right now at $1 billion. Now, beyond this being just good for the pockets of the owners of Red, why else would this be beneficial for the company overall to agree to this? Well, it helps them get a massive influx of cash for R&D. Many won't admit it, but after a surge by Red in the early digital camera market, they've fallen behind ARRI in the past decade, potentially in sales, but also in the upper end of the film industry. And even beyond ARRI, how do you match the spending power of Sony when it comes to innovating on your camera technology, where Sony really nailed it with their detachable sensor Sony Venice camera? So in the end, this could give Red a lot more flexibility to pursue not just one, but many different tech advancements for their cameras in the future. This would be good for Apple, as well as they'd have control of key RAW patents until 2028. Imagine compressed RAW options in an iPhone, but beyond that, it gives them a company with a long track record of having cameras that many in the film industry use for films, and would give their Apple TV streamer an official camera. It would expand the research and expertise on camera technology for Apple, potentially helping in other areas of their products like iPhones, where they rely heavily on Sony for sensors. Honestly, this feels like a win-win for both companies in terms of what they both receive. Apple receives a lot of software and proprietary knowledge, and Red gets funding to get better leverage in a camera market that is quickly compressing. But this development would mainly impact the professional market, while the purchasing of another company could make already existing Apple products better for the average Joe. And a big name for the little guys in videography is Blackmagic Design, a company that specializes in manufacturing an array of gear related to video production and broadcasting solutions. From up-down cross converters to capture cards, and most importantly for aspiring videographers, affordable, Blackmagic Design also manufactures dedicated hardware to be used in tandem with their ever more popular non-linear editor, DaVinci Resolve, with studio versions being packaged together with any new Blackmagic camera you can buy. Some hardware solutions are specifically made for and by Apple, like the Blackmagic eGPU. Not only that, but the founder and CEO of Blackmagic Design, Grant Petty, has close ties with Apple, even having taught himself how to code on an early Apple computer. Now, Apple buying Blackmagic could be seen as an out-of-left-field move, though, as their business models almost seem antithetical to each other. Apple designs luxury phones and computers and charges sky-high prices, while Blackmagic is a manufacturer that provides for the indie market, allowing videographers a means to get into the industry through modest pricing. What could be undeniably valuable for Apple, however, is Blackmagic's experience in designing portable prosumer cameras that are viable for professional shoots and amateurs alike, and their work regarding their own log format B-RAW. Maybe Apple could purchase the manufacturer in order to design ever more powerful phone cameras and make their already existing product lines better. But I will say, out of all of these options, to me the one that makes the most sense is Apple buying Red, probably the least expensive route with the most potential to actually happen. But let us know what you guys think would happen in the comments below. And if you want to take a look at a camera company that failed to get a camera off the ground, check out this video of the first 4K digital camera ever sold.